The scream cut the kitchen like a blade, and the old farmer's heart answered. Eli Hayes felt the floor tilt, then the world narrowed to a tunnel of breaths. Jacob said, "Dad, sit down," but the chair missed him. Mara said, "Don't you dare leave like this." The table shook. A letter slid from his palm. He smelled rain, and old coffee, and the dust of years spent swallowing pride. Eli said, "Ruth's last words are heavier than the tractor." He saw the faces he had shaped with silence. He remembered the boy at the gate who waited every harvest, and went home alone. Eli said, "I taught you to endure storms. I never taught you where to hide." The porch light flickered like a bad memory. Leo's small voice rose from the doorway. Leo said, "Grandpa, is Grandma in the sky tonight?" Eli tasted copper fear. He heard chickens muttering as if the barn itself had gossip. He thought, "If I fall now, the letter will speak for me, and that is cowardice." He forced breath back into his lungs. Eli said, "Let me finish what I started." The room listened like a jury. The letter lay between them, thin as a blade. Silence swelled until it had a voice. Eli felt the years lining up like fence posts, each one a day he chose stubbornness over mercy. Mara said, "You don't get to faint your way out." Jacob said, "Let him breathe." Eli said, "Breath is cheap when truth is late." The rain wrote on the windows. He remembered Ruth laughing in the orchard, and the season her laughter learned to limp. He remembered the night he sent Mara away for speaking a truth he refused to hear. Eli said, "I told myself I was protecting this house." He saw the rot beneath the porch where no one looked. Leo moved closer, small fingers bunching his shirt. Leo said, "Grandpa, I can hold the letter." Eli almost surrendered it to the boy, then stopped. Eli said, "Not yet, son." The word son stung everyone. Jacob's mouth tightened as if bit by his own name. Mara's eyes filled, then steadied. The kitchen clock clicked like a metronome for grief. Eli said, "Tonight I will say what I should have said years ago." The town never needed facts to pass sentence. Eli remembered Sunday eyes tracking him, and whispers about debts and pride. Jacob said, "You made me the man who never asks." Mara said, "You taught me to fight shadows." Eli said, "I called it strength." He saw the day they lost the south field, and how he swore could be bullied into harvest. He recalled the accident with the neighbor's truck, the dent he never confessed, and the hand he refused to shake. Eli said, "I measured worth in silence and chores." Ruth had told him love bends or breaks. He chose break, and it broke them. Leo shuffled closer, small heartbeat loud in the hush. Leo said, "Grandma said your hands were kind to animals." Eli felt the weight of that mercy, given to beasts and withheld from kin. He tasted rusted apologies. Eli said, "I didn't know how to be looked at without armor." The clock ticked, and rain eased to a soft apology. The envelope waited like a witness with perfect memory. Regret rose like old smoke from the stove. Eli saw Ruth's last winter, her handwriting shaking but still patient. Mara said, "You let me carry lies that weren't mine." Jacob said, "You made me your shadow." Eli said, "I thought a father must be a wall." He remembered the rumor that clung to Mara like burrs, and how he let the town choose the story. Eli said, "I told myself silence would starve the wolves. The wolves learned to hunt inside them instead." Leo touched the envelope with one careful finger. Leo said, "Does it hurt to open it?" Eli said, "It hurts more to leave it closed." He felt Ruth's voice in the paper, forgiving where he could not. He wondered if the secret would erase him or set him free. He feared both. The rain stopped. The yard light hummed and steadied. In the sudden quiet, his heartbeat sounded like a boot on an empty porch. Eli slid a thumb beneath the flap and felt paper surrender. His breath steadied, then hitched. Eli said, "Ruth, guide my tongue." Mara said, "Say it clear." Jacob said, "No more half-truths." The envelope opened like a small door to a larger house. Ink rose, ghosting the room with Ruth's steadiness. Eli read the first line, and his throat closed on a prayer he had never learned to speak. Eli said, "She writes of the night we lost the South Field." The second line struck like a hidden nail under straw. Eli said, "She writes of a child who carried a burden that wasn't theirs." Mara swayed but did not look away. Jacob's hands opened, palms empty, like someone preparing to catch a falling thing. Leo whispered hope like a secret spell. Eli said, "I have been angry at the wrong person." The words were a blade that cut and cleaned. He lifted his eyes. The room waited. Eli said, "What comes next will change our name." The letter's ink bled history across Eli's hands. He saw Ruth's neat script tremble only where truth demanded it. Eli said, "She writes of a debt that wasn't mine alone." Mara said, "Say it plain." Jacob said, "You blamed her for what you did." Eli's chest tightened. The rain-washed air smelled like the orchard in fall, when apples dropped before their time. He remembered a night 20 years back, headlights sweeping the south field, and a cry swallowed by wind. Eli said, "I hid the truth to protect us, but I protected my own shame." Leo's eyes darted between faces, sensing more than he understood. The kitchen's warm light felt thin, like it couldn't reach the corners. Eli said, "The letter names the man who took more than land from us." Mara's knuckles whitened on the table's edge. Jacob's breath left him slow, as if bracing for a blow. Eli felt the words pulling the ground from under all of them. He said, "It was someone we broke bread with." Eli felt Ruth's words burn like frost on bare skin. Mara said, "You let me believe it was me." Jacob said, "You let me hate her." Eli's voice faltered. "It was my brother, Samuel." The name cracked in the air. Memory rushed back, Samuel's boots on their porch, his easy laugh, the way he avoided mirrors. Eli said, "He took the field and left me with the blame." Mara's jaw clenched. Jacob turned toward the window, as if the night might take the sound back. The lamp's glow revealed faces carved deeper by years than by age. Leo whispered, "But Uncle Samuel brings candy." Eli said, "Some gifts cost more than they're worth." The truth hung between them, heavy as wet soil, waiting for hands brave enough to turn it. The name Samuel unlocked doors in their minds they had nailed shut. Mara saw the day he offered her a ride and how she walked instead. Jacob remembered Samuel's hand on his shoulder, too heavy to feel kind. Eli said, "Ruth begged me to tell you, but I thought silence was armor." Mara said, "Silence was a cage." Jacob said nothing, but his knuckles were white on the windowsill. Eli felt the weight of every Sunday dinner where Samuel's voice filled the room like smoke. Leo said, "Why didn't anyone stop him?" Eli's answer was a sigh worn thin by years. "Because I thought forgiveness without truth was enough." The rain had stopped, but the house still smelled of storm. Eli's mind drifted to the night Samuel left town, pockets heavy with what wasn't his. Ruth stood in the doorway, eyes dry but voice hollow. Eli said, "She told me secrets rot slower in the dark." Mara said, "But they still rot." Jacob's silence pressed harder than words. Eli thought of the south field, how it never yielded the same after that. He had worked it as penance, each furrow a confession no one heard. Eli said, "I feared losing family more than I feared losing myself." Mara's eyes softened for a breath, then steeled again. Leo traced circles on the floor with his toe. The letter's pages seemed to breathe with the room. Eli knew reading further would unearth bones best left buried, yet the digging had begun. Eli turned the page. Ruth's words shifted from confession to warning. "If they ever learn the truth, be ready to lose what little you have left." He had ignored her caution, thinking time would dull the blade. Mara said, "It's not time that heals, it's courage." Jacob's voice was low. "And you never had enough." Eli didn't flinch, he had thought the same of himself. Leo said, "Can we make it better now?" Eli felt the ache of wanting to believe the boy. Only if we stop lying. The dawn light grew, spilling over the table, exposing every crack in the wood and in them. Eli said, "This house was built on work, but it can't stand on silence." The room held its breath for the next truth. The rooster's call split the stillness, but no one moved. Eli stared at the letter's final paragraph, words bending his spine heavier than work ever had. Mara said, "You'll have to tell the town." Jacob said, "They won't forgive easy." Eli said, "Forgiveness is theirs to choose, not mine to demand." The dawn air drifted through the cracked window, bringing the scent of damp earth. He thought of Samuel's face the day he took the field, a smile carved from someone else's grief. Eli said, "I'll name what was stolen and who took it." Leo's voice was small. "Will you tell Uncle Samuel too?" Eli's throat tightened. "If he still walks this earth, yes." The sun touched the porch boards, turning weathered gray to gold, but inside the house, shadows clung. Eli knew once light reached every corner, there'd be no hiding from it again. Eli folded the letter with care, as though each crease was a promise. Mara said, "If you speak, the old stories will change." Jacob said, "They'll call it gossip." Eli said, "Truth sounds like gossip to ears used to lies." He rose slowly, feeling the years in his knees. Outside, the yard glistened from the night's rain, each drop a mirror of the coming day. Leo trailed him to the doorway. Eli said, "I'll start with the sheriff. He should hear it from me." Mara's eyes searched his face for doubt, and found none. Jacob's hand slipped into his pockets like he was holding back something sharp. Eli stepped into the light, letting the cold morning air bite his cheeks. This was not a walk to work. It was a walk to judgment. The gravel path crunched under Eli's boots, each step stirring dust from seasons past. He remembered leading Samuel down this same road as boys, pockets full of stolen apples, laughing like guilt was a game. Mara called after him, "Don't let them twist your words." Eli said, "They can't twist what's nailed in place." Jacob's voice carried low. "Then make it strong." The town lay ahead, roofs catching early light like watchful eyes. Leo ran to catch up, breath quick. "Can I come?" Eli slowed. "Not yet, boy. This is mine to carry." The wind moved through the corn rows, whispering secrets that sounded like his name. Eli's grip on the letter tightened. It felt less like paper now and more like a key. The town's main street was waking, storefronts unlocking, coffee steam rising into cool air. Eli felt eyes on him before he saw faces. Mrs. Carter's gaze lingered from behind the bakery window, her hands still in dough. Eli said to himself, "They've been waiting for this walk." Jacob caught up, falling into step without a word. Mara followed at a distance, arms wrapped tight. Eli said, "The sheriff first, then the church." Jacob's nod was sharp. They passed the old feed store where Samuel once talked his way out of pain. Eli's jaw tightened. The letter burned warm in his pocket, ready to be laid bare. The air felt heavy, not from weather, but from what was about to be pulled into daylight. The sheriff's office stood at the corner, wood siding worn but steady. Eli paused at the steps, feeling the weight of his name pressing down. Mara said, "Once you say it, there's no taking it back." Eli said, "That's the point." Jacob's hand rested briefly on Eli's shoulder, a gesture that felt like both warning and support. Leo appeared at the edge of the street, having followed despite orders, his small frame almost lost in the light. Eli's eyes softened for a heartbeat, then turned to the door. The letter was ready in his grip, and so was he. He thought of Ruth, and how truth might finally let her rest. Then he stepped up. The sheriff looked up from his desk, eyes narrowing as if measuring the weight Eli carried. Eli said, "I've come to set a record straight." Mara stayed at the door, her presence a shield. Jacob stood behind Eli, silent but solid. The air smelled of stale coffee and dust, sunlight cutting through the blinds like stripes of judgment. Eli placed the letter on the desk, the paper's crease a fault line. It names a thief and a lie, he said. The sheriff's brow furrowed. You know this will stir every hornet in town. Eli's voice did not waver. Better the hornets face daylight than live in our walls. Outside, boots passed on the boardwalk, and life went on, not yet knowing the ground had begun to shift. The sheriff read, lips tightening with each line. He glanced up. Samuel Hayes? Eli nodded. My brother. The words fell like stones. Mara's arms crossed tighter. Jacob's jaw twitched. The sheriff said, That's a name folks still toast in this town. Eli's reply was a slow exhale. They've been toasting a thief. The office clock ticked loud in the pause that followed. Outside, a dog barked as if answering the accusation. The sheriff leaned back, the chair creaking like an old gate. You're prepared for the storm? Eli met his eyes. I've been living in it. I'm just ready to call it weather. The sheriff closed the letter gently, as if afraid it might tear under truth's weight. This will dig up more than just Samuel, he said. Eli's gaze did not waver. Then, let the digging start. Mara stepped closer. Will you act on it? The sheriff hesitated. If the town believes it's worth the trouble. Jacob said, Truth is always worth the trouble. The air between them thickened. Eli remembered Samuel's laughter in the feed store, how people leaned in as if it was gospel. He thought, let them remember it differently now. They stepped outside into sunlight, sharp enough to reveal every wrinkle in the day. Townsfolk paused mid-step. Eli felt the weight of eyes, each glance carrying questions. Mara walked close, Jacob on the other side, their silence a barricade. Leo, who had waited across the street, ran to meet them. Did you tell him? Eli nodded. And he listened. Jacob murmured, Now we see who else will. The bakery door swung open, Mrs. Carter stepping out, flour on her apron, gaze locked on Eli. He met it, head on. The truth was out of the shadows now. It would find its way. The walk back felt longer than the walk in. Conversations hushed as they passed. Eli caught fragments. His name, Samuel's name, words like thief and liar curling in the air. Mara said, They'll talk all day. Eli said, Let them. Talking's better than pretending. Jacob glanced at Leo, who was kicking pebbles along the boardwalk, humming to himself. The sun was high now, burning away the last of the morning cool. Eli thought of Ruth's handwriting, steady even when her heart was not. He felt lighter, but also mocked. This was only the first door opened. More waited. Back at the farmhouse, the air was thicker than before. Eli set the letter on the table, the wood beneath it scarred like memory. Mara said, You've lit a fire you can't put out. Jacob said, That's the idea. Eli met their eyes. Samuel will hear of this before nightfall. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between words. Leo climbed onto the bench beside Eli, small hand finding his. Eli thought of Ruth standing at this same table, telling him some truths are best told while the heart still beats. He said, I'm not waiting for the grave to speak for me. The morning light had shifted, carrying the scent of rain gone but not forgotten. Mara paced, the floor creaking under each step. He'll come here angry, she said. Eli replied, Let him. Jacob's voice was sharper. And if he brings others? Eli looked at him steadily. Then they'll hear it too. Outside, a crow cawed, the sound jagged against the still air. Leo asked, Why does he get to be mad? Eli's lips thinned. Because the guilty fear losing their mask. Mara stopped pacing, palms flat on the table. And what if he denies it? Eli leaned forward. I have more than this letter. The weight in his tone left no room for doubt. Eli rose and crossed to the old cabinet. From behind stacked feed ledgers, he pulled a small tin box, its lid dented, edges rusted. He set it down gently, the sound louder than it should have been. Mara's eyes narrowed. Jacob stepped closer. What's in it? Eli flipped the latch. Inside lay faded photographs, a folded deed, and a small silver locket. Proof, he said. His hands lingered on the locket before setting it aside. Mara picked up the deed, eyes scanning. This says the Southfield was signed over without payment. Eli nodded. Samuel's signature and mine, but mine was forged. The room seemed to lean closer to the tin box. Each time, Daddy Tamaquine. Mara's breath came sharper. Why didn't you show this before? Eli's eyes met hers. Because I thought keeping peace was worth more than winning. Jacob's voice cut in. Peace built on theft isn't peace. Leo picked up the locket, holding it carefully. Whose is this? Eli's gaze softened. Your grandmother's. Samuel took it the night he left, and Ruth made him give it back. Mara set down the deed slowly, as if afraid it might tear. Outside the wind shifted, rattling the window pane. Eli said, This box is our weapon and our burden. Eli closed the box and placed it in the center of the table, his hand resting on it like a promise. If Samuel comes, this comes out. Mara said, And if he doesn't? Eli answered, Then I take it to him. Jacob looked toward the window, where the road stretched empty but expectant. Leo leaned against Eli's arm, quiet now. The sound of a truck in the distance made them all still. Mara's eyes flicked to Eli. He nodded once. It's time to stop hiding. The truck engine grew louder, carrying the shape of the moment toward them. The truck's engine cut, leaving the air heavy with dust and tension. Eli stood the tin box under his arm. Jacob moved to the door, Mara close behind. Leo peered from the corner. Samuel stepped from the truck, hair grayer but swagger untouched. Eli said, You finally came back. Samuel smirked. Heard you've been talking. Mara's voice was sharp. We're done whispering. Samuel's eyes flicked to the box. What's that? Eli's grip tightened. Everything you left behind, and everything you stole. The wind carried the smell of road dust into the house, settling over the table like another layer of truth, waiting to be shaken off. Samuel took a slow step forward, boots grinding the porch boards. You could have left the past buried, he said. Eli's reply was low but steady. Buried things still rot. Jacob's fists clenched at his sides. Mara shifted, her shadow cutting across Samuel's. Samuel's gaze swept the yard as if looking for an escape that wasn't there. Eli set the tin box on the porch rail. It's all here. Your signature, the forged deed, proof enough to empty your pockets and your pride. Samuel's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of something sharper. You think the town will take your word over mine? Eli leaned in. I don't need them to. The truth doesn't care who believes it. Samuel's eyes narrowed at the mention of the deed. Paper won't change the years. Eli's voice sharpened. But it will change what comes next. Mara moved to Eli's side, her presence a visible wall. Jacob stepped down onto the yard, circling slightly, making sure Samuel couldn't block the steps. Leo stayed inside, but leaned against the window, face pressed to glass. Samuel's jaw flexed. You'll ruin us both. Eli said no. Only the one who earned it. The air between them felt like dry timber, one spark away from fire. The tin box sat in the middle of it all, a relic and a weapon. Samuel's voice dropped. You never forgave me for being the one they liked. Eli's laugh was dry. They liked the story you told them, not the man you were. Mara said, He's still that man. Jacob added, just older and smaller. Samuel's eyes darted to Leo in the window, and for a flicker, his face softened. Eli caught it. Don't you dare look at him like you looked at us. Samuel stepped back, hands tightening at his sides. The sun slid lower, painting the dust in orange light. Eli knew the next words would decide if Samuel stayed or was driven out. Eli lifted the tin box, opening it for all to see. The deed, the photographs, the locket, silent witnesses. This is the truth, he said. Take it and face the sheriff, or walk away and know I will. Samuel's breath caught, a sound too quiet for his pride to hide. Mara stepped closer to Eli, Jacob beside her. Leo's small voice drifted from inside. "Grandpa, is it over?" Eli looked at Samuel one last time. "It's just beginning." The wind shifted, carrying the smell of rain from somewhere far off. Samuel's shoulders dropped, not in surrender, but in knowing the fight had finally arrived. The silence after Samuel's last look was heavier than the words they'd exchanged. He stepped off the porch, each footfall dull against the boards. Eli stood unmoving, tin box still in his grasp. Mara's breath was steady now, no longer laced with fear. Jacob's hands finally relaxed at his sides. Leo's small face pressed against the windowpane, his eyes searching for the meaning in grown-up silence. Eli said, "Let him carry the weight now." The road stretched behind Samuel, long and empty, sunlight breaking in uneven patches. Eli knew this wasn't victory, only the first taste of truth without chains. The air smelled of coming rain, as if the sky itself had been listening. Inside, the house felt different, lighter, though nothing had been moved. Eli set the box back on the table, its presence no longer a threat but a record. Mara sat down across from him, her shoulders loosening. Jacob poured coffee without asking. Leo slipped into the chair beside Eli. "You did it," he said. Eli's smile was faint, weighted by what was still to come. "I told the truth." Mara's voice softened. "And now we live with it." The ticking clock no longer felt like a judge, but a witness. Outside, the first drop of rain tapped the window, gentle but certain. The rain thickened, pattering a rhythm over the roof. Eli sipped the coffee, its bitterness grounding him. Jacob leaned back, eyes on the tin box. "Will you give it to the sheriff?" Eli shook his head. "Not yet. Truth needs the right timing." Mara tilted her head. "Or the right audience." Leo traced the box edge with one finger, as if memorizing its shape. Eli thought of Ruth's last words in the letter, "Make sure they know why it mattered." His voice was steady. "We'll tell the story until it belongs to all of us, not just me." The storm outside grew louder, but inside the air was clear. By nightfall, the storm passed, leaving the smell of wet earth drifting through the open window. Eli stepped onto the porch alone, the boards cool under his bare feet. He looked out toward the road, where Samuel had disappeared hours before. The moonlight made the gravel shine like a ribbon through the dark. He thought of the years lost to silence, of the harm done in the name of keeping peace. Behind him, the soft hum of family voices reminded him what was still here. Eli whispered to the night, "Ruth, I've done what I could." Somewhere, a barn owl called, and the wind answered. Eli returned inside, the smell of coffee and rain mingling. Mara, Jacob, and Leo looked up as he entered. He sat, pulling the letter from the tin box one final time. His voice was quiet but carried. "This is for all of us now." He began to read, the words weaving through the room like threads binding them together. Mara's eyes softened, Jacob's posture eased, Leo leaned in close. When the last line fell, Eli folded the paper slowly. He said, "Sometimes the only way to forgive your brother is to stop being his shadow." The room held the silence like a prayer, and the truth stayed, not as a wound, but as a mark they would all carry forward.